I've literally never seen anyone talk about this. Today, I am going to be breaking down a full wedding budget by exact category, telling you all the expenses that go in that category and what you can expect. I'm going to be giving the example of a mid-tier wedding budget today, which is about in the 20 to 50K range, I would say. Now, this is going to vary based on region, obviously. If you live in the East Coast, LA, New York, $50,000 is not going to be considered a mid-tier wedding. $100,000 is probably going to be considered a mid-tier wedding. But for the purposes of today's video, we're calling this a mid-tier wedding because for the majority of the country, $20,000 to $50,000 is considered a mid-tier wedding budget. So I'm so excited to break it down. And before we dive in, if you don't know who I am, my name is Marie Hansen. I am a wedding planner of 5+ years. I was a COVID pandemic bride myself. And now I teach people how to spend their wedding budget strategically so you can plan a wedding that's beautiful and authentically them without having any regrets or any pressure to overspend. First thing I want to talk about is guest count. So guest count is obviously the biggest driver of a wedding budget. It affects so many things that people don't even realize. It affects venue size, food, drink, florals, decor, favors, rentals, stationery, etc. Guest count touches every single one of those areas of your wedding day. So the more you can minimize it, obviously the more money you're going to save. And I say that as somebody who is one of 12 children. My dad is one of 16, and I have grown up just having big family weddings. So I know it's not necessarily easy to do that. I get it. Okay, like I really do get it. My immediate family, like close immediate family alone, was over 150 people when we put together our wedding guest count. That didn't include like extended family. That didn't include friends. That didn't even include my husband's side. That was like just my close family. So I know how hard it can be to cut guest count, but it's going to be a big budget driver. You can do it if you want to. Just because it's what's always been done, like if your family is like mine and they always have really big weddings, it doesn't mean you have to. You can break the chain of normal for your family or whatever. You can be the first one to have a small wedding if you want to. If you don't want to, that's okay. We will talk about how to work other budget categories too. But just understand that guest count really does affect every area of your budget. And the easiest way to shrink back your wedding budget is to cut guests. For a mid-range wedding, I often see about 100 to 200 guests typically. Stretching over 150 is doable, but you'll have to make trade-offs if you're going to stretch over 150 people with a budget in this range. Next, let's talk about venue. Your venue is likely one of your biggest expenses, and at this level, you can either go with a full-service venue or a more DIY option with some built-in features. Look for venues that include tables, chairs. A bridal suite would be really nice, maybe even some rentals. That will save you a ton of money. And I really encourage couples to ask what's included in their venue and what's not, because sometimes a cheaper venue turns into a money pit once you add everything on. So, for example, most people think that like a tent or outside wedding is going to be cheaper. But once you add in renting the tables, renting the chairs, renting the linens, bringing in food and beverage, you have to bring in bathrooms. You literally have to rent bathrooms. Adding all of that up is a lot more expensive usually than just going with a full service venue. So nothing against like outdoor tent weddings. I think they are gorgeous. And if that's your dream, like go for it. But I just want to say that to point out that DIYing and like piecemealing things together isn't actually necessarily cheaper for a lot of people, especially if you're in this budget range. So I would try to see if you can get an all-inclusive venue or at least get a venue that includes things like tables, chairs, linens would be nice, because the more they include, honestly, the more you're probably going to save. Okay, now let's chat about flowers. So mid-range florals usually means you're going to be able to hire professional florists for the essentials. So like bouquets, boutonnieres, centerpieces usually, but you likely want to have room for like the big floral installations or more large arrangements. You can still do those. I would recommend doing those with fake flowers, or you could just do simpler designs with the real flowers. And then a good hack is always to repurpose your ceremony flowers at your reception. So you could reuse your bridal bouquet at the head table or the sweetheart table. You could reuse bridesmaid bouquets as decor on things like the gift and card table or the bar. And you can repurpose bouquets where you can to just save money on florals too. I'd say a mix of couples in this budget range typically use real versus fake. A lot still go the fake route because it'll save you a lot of money. Many go the real route though too, because this is the budget range where you kind of have a little more flexibility on that. Now I will say florals are usually the thing that shock people the most. When I give couples their floral quotes, they're like, ah, and I always preface like, sticker shock on flowers is very real, but if you can DIY some or just go with simpler real arrangements, you can get beautiful florals for a mid-tier budget price. All right, now let's talk photo and video. So photo and video is usually a big non-negotiable for couples, and rightfully so. It's like one of the things you get to keep forever from your wedding day. So absolutely, I personally think prioritizing photo and video is such a great thing to do. So you can expect to spend about 3 to 7K per photo and video at this level. And coverage for that price would typically be between 8 and 10 hours each. Experience and artistry usually dictates price. So obviously, the longer someone has been a photographer, their price is going to be more expensive. The more artistic their editing style and the more edits their photos need is also going to make the price increase as well. So if you're going for like just candid, very minimal edits, that's going to be on the lower end. Or if you want more artistic or more experienced photographer, that's going to be more on the higher end. But I still do encourage couples to prioritize this because the number one wedding regret is photography and videography. People always regret this, either getting a photographer whose style they didn't like, not spending more, not having it. So many wedding regrets circle around photography and videography. So I really do think it's a good place to prioritize your budget. Don't just book someone right away. Like, make sure you like their style, make sure you like them. Make sure it fits in your budget though. You don't need to blow your whole budget on photo and video. And if full day coverage is out of your budget, prioritize the most important parts of your day. So this would be like your ceremony and your portraits afterwards. And then you can easily skip the getting ready photos or the late night photos because honestly, once general dancing starts, there's really not much that needs to be photographed. It would be nice if you have a send-off to get photos of it, but iPhone cameras work great for that too. Same for the getting ready pictures. So I always recommend, if people want to save money, to skip the full day coverage and just start like slightly before the ceremony and end right after like the special dances and toasts and all of those kind of things. Okay, moving on to one of my favorites, dessert. So mid-range weddings often have simpler, smaller decorative cakes for cutting, and then they have sheet cake or other desserts for their guests. So this is a great way to save money. You can get like a pretty 1 or 2 tier cake to cut for photos and then sheet cake for everyone else in the back. No one really knows the difference and it tastes just as good. If you want to go for the big full wedding cake, that is going to take a significant portion of your budget. If this is one of your priorities, that's okay. This is why we talk about prioritizing different aspects of our wedding budget. We want to pick our top 2 to 3, spend in those, and then scale everything else back. So if cake is one of your priorities, go for it. But for many people, it's not. And so doing a smaller cutting cake with sheet cake works too. Bakeries will often do dessert tables or mini dessert bar packages, so you could ask about those too. I will say those tend to be a little more expensive though, so if you're just wanting to keep it to a minimum, sheet cake is a really good way to go. You could also ask your local grocery store because grocery stores actually do beautiful wedding cakes. They turn out super nice. You can get a wedding cake and then sheet cake too from a grocery store for significantly cheaper than you could from a bakery. And they honestly always turn out beautiful. This is the way I usually go with my couples who are in this budget price range. Okay, so let's talk about other vendors. So specifically a planner. If you have a planner in this price range, it's likely a day or month of coordinator or partial planning. Some people do have full service planners in this price range, but you're probably not going to have the very experienced full service planner in this price range. I do recommend getting someone to run the show so you're not handing your phone to your maid of honor or your sister on your wedding day. I do always like to say the day of coordinator is totally the MVP you didn't know you needed. And you likely have the budget, if you're in this price range, to hire a month or day of coordinator. And I would highly, highly recommend that. I will say too that day of coordination almost doesn't exist for what people think it is. It's rare to find someone who will just come swoop in on the actual day because true professional coordinators know that there's a lot more moving pieces beforehand. We need to be talking to vendors. We need to be coordinating the schedule. We need to be doing all this stuff beforehand. So it's rare to find true day of coordination from a professional wedding planner, but month of coordination is a great package to go with as well. And if you can't afford that, or if it's just something you really don't want to prioritize, I'd actually highly recommend you jump into my WedSmart program because I can help you walk through putting together your day of binder, walk you through how to train someone to actually do your wedding day for you, who's like a friend or family member. Now, just make sure that if you have them doing this, they know they're not going to get to be a part of the wedding, because being a coordinator means you are busy on your feet all day long. Usually they're 12 plus hours days for me, and there's really not a break. So make sure it's someone, if you are going to DIY this, that is willing to do that for you. And I would highly recommend it. It's only 27 bucks. I can jump in and help walk you through that, make sure everything is laid out how you need it to be so that your day is smooth and coordinated well. Okay, so let's talk about other details. In this budget range, you may have to let go of some of those extra things like a photo booth, favors, upgraded seating. Anything that's really customized is probably not going to fit into this budget category. So this is where you're really going to have to start trimming what I call the Pinterest fluff. Think favors, specialty items, rentals, custom signage, fancy seating charts. None of these things are necessary, and skipping them saves hundreds or sometimes thousands of dollars. So what I recommend is to focus on the details that affect guest experience. So good food, good flow, and intentional details that represent you. So for example, favors are super fun, and you could say that this is a guest experience, but honestly, most people throw their favors away or don't grab them or don't remember them like 2 weeks later. Instead of spending money on favors, you could spend that money on better food or an upgraded bar package or a nicer DJ or something like that. Food, DJ, those kind of things really affect the night versus favors, pretty signage, things like that. So let's talk decor. At this level, you're probably going to have a mix of rentals and DIY. That's super common. So you might rent larger pieces like big mirrors or large centerpieces, things like that, but then you're gonna DIY signage or small centerpieces from like Facebook Marketplace, the Dollar Tree, local buy-sell trade groups, things like that. You can get a lot of gorgeous wedding stuff for super cheap in Facebook groups. So I'd highly recommend you check those out. Just search your area. You could search like, for if I'm in Milwaukee bridal resale, or Milwaukee wedding buy sell trade. Those kind of words will help you find the groups in your area. Okay, so moving on to invitations and programs and stationery. So this is where semi-custom or digital invitations and stationery suites shine. So sites like Canva, Zola, Minted, they offer affordable options, and you can usually DIY ceremony programs and print them at Staples or through a website called Prints of Love. They print all wedding programs for super, super cheap. It's just an easy way to save thousands of dollars. I personally, unless it's like one of your top 2 to 3 priorities, would not go full custom stationery, and I would not go with a fancy stationer, because that is just, it literally is hundreds to thousands of dollars, where you could do it for 20 to 100 bucks if you were to do it yourself. Get a really cheap template. You can usually get templates that match like a full suite, so you could have all of your invitations and your programs and your signage. All of it can match and be cohesive. You just edit it in Canva and send it off to print, and it is super cheap, super easy. It's definitely the way to go. I myself have made a bunch of templates. Just had a bride use them this past weekend. I will have to share those photos because they're gorgeous. But yeah, it's a really easy way to save money, is to go the DIY route more so on these. And then also to do digital RSVPs. So I would use a site like Zola or The Knot and have people RSVP online, so you're not paying for the extra stationery and postage for the RSVPs. Okay, let's talk about the dress. Now, this is usually a really big part of most people's day. I feel a little weird talking about it for me because I didn't care so much about my dress, and I hate to say that, but like, to me the dress was not a priority, but to a lot of people it is. So for this budget, most brides can usually find a really beautiful dress in the $1,000 to $2,000 range. I would not sleep on sample sales, trunk shows, or even secondhand options from places like Facebook Marketplace. I actually personally found my dress on Facebook Marketplace. I got it for $500. It was originally a $2,000 dress, and it already had all the alterations done too. So it was already bustled. It was actually perfect to my height. So it literally didn't need anything, because alterations can be hundreds of dollars as well. I would look into that, and then also make sure you do budget in for alterations, because like I said, those are usually between $300 and $800. Could be more if you're like really customizing your dress, but for simple alterations and a bustle, usually you're going to be in the $300 to $800 range. Okay, so let's talk about hair and makeup now. I would expect about $150 to $250 per person per service for most couples. Now, this is going to vary by area again, but this is typically what you can expect. I would ask about group discounts. If you're gonna have a lot of people getting their hair and makeup done, they might be able to give you a group discount or do the bride for free. I would also ask if free trials are included or if that is an additional charge. Usually they will make you pay for a trial session. Sometimes it's slightly discounted, but sometimes it's the full price too for your hair and makeup trial. Always, always, always though, do the trial, because I have seen a few brides who have not done the trial and then they hate their hair and makeup on the wedding day. So you really don't want to be spending hundreds of dollars and then hate it. So make sure you do the trial. If it doesn't work out, you can make tweaks, or if it really doesn't work out, you can find a new hair and makeup artist or hairstylist for your wedding day. If you have friends who are good at hair and makeup, this is still an area that I would recommend saving money on. If you have like really talented friends, ask them to do your hair and makeup, or if you're really talented, feel free to do your own hair and makeup. You do not have to have professional hair and makeup done if this is an area that you want to save in your budget. Also, it's not typical that brides pay for all the bridesmaids in this budget range. In the higher budget ranges, sometimes if you are requiring that they get professional hair and makeup done, then I would recommend you pay for it. However, most brides are just going to make it optional, and then if they want to get it done, then they pay for themselves. Okay, moving on, let's talk about food. So food can swing wildly based on location, what you get, and your guest count. Generally speaking, for 150 to 200 guests, you're probably looking at between 10 to 15,000 all in, which means service, staff, etc. Buffets or family style meals can be cheaper than plated, and food trucks are also a great option if you have a smaller reception. I would not recommend food trucks for more than probably 60 guests because the lines would get really, really long. But food trucks are a fun and great option too. Also, look into local restaurants. So they're usually much cheaper than traditional catering companies, and I honestly think the food tastes way, way better. This is usually what I will do with my couples in this budget range is we'll find a local restaurant to cater their food instead of a traditional catering company. Saves a ton of money, helps support a local business, and the food is usually so much better. I know we did this for our wedding. We have a local pub that just makes really, really good food. And so we got wings, which is so not traditional for a wedding, but we had wings and apps and fruit and veggies. People talked about our food forever because it was so unique and it was just so good. So highly recommend looking into local restaurants if you are in this budget range because they can just be really cheap and really, really good food. And of course, I can't talk about food without talking about drinks. So I'm just gonna say open bars are pricey. Like they are very, very pricey. Venues or companies aren't going to lose money on bars. So you're gonna be paying a lot more versus if you had paid per drink per person. So what I'd recommend instead is doing a beer, wine, and soda where you guys cover the beer, wine, and soda, maybe even a signature cocktail that you guys will cover. It's fun and more affordable. And then let the rest of the bar, like the rest of the cocktails and mixed drinks, be cash bar. So people can still get them if they want them, but they're gonna be paying cash for those drinks. Most people are not gonna drink $50 worth of alcohol, but you'll be paying about that for an open bar for someone. Some venues will let you bring your own alcohol and just charge you the bartending fee. So this saves a huge amount of money. Make sure you ask your venue if you can bring your own alcohol when you're touring, because if you can, you're going to save probably thousands of dollars by bringing your own alcohol. Because then too, if you can find a liquor store that will let you return on open bottles, you only have to pay for exactly what you use, which is super, super nice. Also, don't forget about non-alcoholic options and water stations because people will be thirsty. Yes, you can have like soda up at the bar, but if you can have like a water station or something too, that's always really helpful so that people looking for water aren't crowding the bar. That's always a really good idea too. I figured I'd just really quick give you a realistic sample for a $50,000 budget wedding for 200 guests. So I'm just gonna quickly break it down by rough category. If I were budgeting this for my clients, I would further break it down under each of these top categories. So for example, under like attire, I would further break it down: dress, shoes, jewelry, veil, alterations. So this is just gonna be like the encompassing category, but just for the video's sake, I think this will be helpful to give you guys kind of an idea of what would be realistic for a $50,000 budget with 200 guests. So I'm just gonna read the budget I wrote. $50,000 for an experienced photo and video team, $10,000. Dress and shoes, veil, tux, and suit, like all the attire, $6,000. Venue rental, all inclusive, so decor, food, beverage, etc., $15,000. So this would be about $75 a head. DJ mid-range would be about $2,000. Baked goods, so for a tiered cutting cake and sheet cake, around $2,000. A priest, if you're Catholic, plus a server stipend, if you had 3 servers, would be about $500. If you did a custom invitation suite, it would be about $1,500 or more. That's on the cheap end. If you did custom programs, it'd be about $500. Mid-range florals, I'd say about $7,000. A marriage license is going to be about $100. Hair and makeup, about $600. Musicians for the ceremony, about $300. A simple guest book, about $2,000. So that breakdown is $45,700. Now that didn't include several other things, which I'm going to tell you right now, these extras and what they would end up costing. So let's say you want to do cocktail hour or late night food. This is usually an add-on per head at the reception. Let's just say it's $10 a head. So it'd be $2,000 plus taxes and service fees added on that. A photo booth that provides prints to guests would probably be around $1,000. Transportation, so a limo or a party bus for the bridal party would be about $2,500. Favors could be about $500. Gifts to the parents, about $250. Bridal party gifts, $500. If you did like special reception element, like a CO2 cannon or glow wands or something like that, it would be about $200. If you did custom cake cutters, $50. And then vendor tips, anywhere from $300 to $1,000 in tips and gratuity. So the grand total with, if you were to add in all those extras, would be about $53,000-ish. Now, that is a very rough breakdown, and how you break it down is going to vary based on what you prioritize. And this is what I teach. I teach that we need to prioritize 2 to 3 things and work the budget around those, and then everything else will fall into place after that. We do not work our budget around what we want. We work what we want and get around our budget, because we don't need to go into debt or be financially stressed for our wedding. Your wedding can be beautiful and personal and joyful and affordable because every line item is a choice. You need to remember that every line item is a choice. You can reduce your guest count. You can DIY your florals. You can skip favors. There are always levers you can pull to stay within your budget. It's all up to you and the choices you make. Budgeting is not about restrictions. I just like to say this. It's about stewarding the money we have, creativity, and focusing on what matters most. You don't need $100,000 to have a beautiful wedding, because what really matters is your marriage. You just need clarity and tension and some support. So I'd like to give everyone listening to this a gift. I do have a complete wedding planning checklist. It's got over 350 to-dos. I promise you won't do all of those, but it will like literally walk you through every little thing you can think about for your wedding, from transportation for the bride, for the groom, for the bridal party, favors, gratuity, do we want to do these extras, where are we staying the wedding night? Like, it will walk you through literally every decision you have to make about your wedding. So I'd like to give that to you for free. Plus, I also include with that vendor negotiation email scripts. These are the negotiation email scripts I use for my clients that I send to vendors to try to negotiate prices, get lower prices for them. And then I also have a tool that I use with all my clients. I call it my guest list tracker. And what it is, it tracks all of your guests. It tracks their address. It tracks what you've sent to them. Have you sent invitations or saved the dates? And it tracks responses. Are they coming? What food do they want? Do they need any special accommodations? It tracks if you've sent thank yous and just all of that kind of stuff. So this is all my free gift to you. It will be in the link in the show notes today. And if you like this episode, I would really, really love it if you could share it with someone who you think would find this helpful. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Or if you're not on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube to help boost the show too. I would absolutely love that. And if you're listening on podcasts, I would absolutely also love if you gave this a review on Apple Podcasts. That just helps me understand what you're liking, what you're not liking, and helps bump it out to more people. So thank you so much for being here. I really hope this episode was helpful for you. I love talking weddings and wedding budgets. It's what I do every day for work. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.